Senate will come to order. Senators will be in their seats, and the clerk will call the roll.
Alley, Baumgardner, Billinger, Bowers, Clays, Corson, Dietrich, Dahl, Erickson, Estes, Fagg, Faust-Cadeau, Francisco, Gossage, Haley, Hawk, Hildebrand, Holland, Holscher, Kirshen, Close, Longbine, Masterson, McGinn, Olson, O'Shea, Peck, Peterson, Petty, Pittman, Pyle, Steffen, Straub, Sullentrop, Sykes, Thompson, Tyson, Ware, Warren, Wilborn.
Here. Senators and their guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to the chaplain.
Let us pray. Lord, with bowed heads and hearts of humility, we come today with gratefulness. We're grateful to you for the privilege we've been given to serve. You've charged us to listen to the voice of the people, to represent them, and to offer our voices on their behalf. This is a tremendous responsibility that we cannot achieve apart from the effectiveness of your grace. So, Lord, that we may flow in your grace, give us the initiative to humble ourselves so we won't have to experience, as it says in James chapter 4, verse 6, you resisting us and sovereignly humbling us. The task that you've given us requires that in serving your people, we listen to them, that we hear the concerns of their hearts and make decisions on their behalf. But keep us mindful that the far greater obligation is to be serving you, to be listening to your voice, to hear the concerns of your heart, that our decisions will be expressions of your will, which will ultimately be for the good of the people. Above all, Lord, restrain us from self-serving and tune our ears to that still, small, quiet voice of yours described in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 12. Because, Lord, we really don't want you to have to raise your voice and go to getting loud on us. Our ears are therefore open as we are listening and longing for your direction. Father, I come to you in the name of Jesus, who gave us the best example of listening to you. Amen and amen.
Please continue standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please note reference of bills on pages 1 and 2 of your calendar. Before recessing, are there any announcements? See, yes, Senator from Cherokee, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I received a email yesterday from a past representative. He just wanted me to relay this message and do a presentation for a past senator that served in this chamber. He passed away recently, Cal Wesley Hudson. So I just wanted to let the body know that a past senator has passed away, and I believe he served. See if I can find it real quick. From 72 to 76. So just wanted to bring that to the body's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements? Senator from Douglas?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Senate Democrats will be caucusing upon recess in room 287 North for the purpose of discussing Senate Bills 13 and Senate Bills 14.
Seeing none, we now, Chair recognizes the Senate Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Schoentrop.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate recess to the sound of the gavel. Colleagues, we'll meet in our normal caucus room upstairs and be back.
Oops, excuse me. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. The Senate is recessed. The Senate will come to order. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Schellentraub.
Sorry, Mr. Vice President is taking care of some technical issues. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. The chair appoints the senator from Cherokee, Senator Hildebrand, to preside over the committee as a whole.
Good afternoon. The Senate having resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole, we will now consider those items listed on the calendar under the heading of General Orders. We will now turn our attention to Senate Bill 14. The chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Warren, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 14 is before us to be heard. And let me tell you a little bit about Senate Bill 14. Senate Bill 14 arises out of special session work that we did in June 2020. In special session in June 2020, the legislature met to address the COVID-19 pandemic and the state of Kansas's response. Out of the special session in June 2020, the legislature passed with large bipartisan support in both chambers HB 2016, which the governor signed into law. What Senate Bill 14 does is it addresses some of the deadlines that are set to expire in HB 2016 that are set to expire January 26, 2021. HB 2016 was the legislature's planned response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we want to keep that plan in place temporarily so the legislature can then go through the legislative process and take a deep dive, a deeper look at some of the things that the legislature enacted in HB 2016 to address the pandemic. The bill passed favorably out of committee. It was unopposed coming out of committee. We had 10 proponents come and testify in favor. I think 9 written proponents, 1 neutral, and 1 opponent. So it was largely supported, and we are ready to talk about it. We'll go through section by section. And again, the whole goal here is to merely keep in place, by and large, what we did in special session so that we can take a deeper dive and look into what is needed going forward. What kind of permanent changes we needed, that's all for a later day, a later bill. So section 1 keeps in place the provisions that the legislature put in place regarding to-go alcohol sales. It merely extends the deadline from January 26th, 2021 for that provision to expire to March 31st, 2021. You'll hear a common theme with all these sections that the date extended is from January 26, 2021 to March 31st, 2021. So rather than repeat those dates, just advise the body that the date extension is from January 26, 2021 through March 31st, 2021. Obviously, this is something we need to address right away in session. If we don't, January 26, 2021 is coming, and all of these provisions that the legislature put in place last summer will be gone. Section 1, again, regarding to-go alcohol sales, nothing changed there except we're extending the deadline. Section 2 concerns the actions of the State Finance Council when the legislature is not in session to review the governor's actions. Without Section 2, we would lose the State Finance Council authority to review the governor's actions. Section 2 provides that the State Finance Council will spring into action with authority if, while we're in session, as we are right now, the legislature's back, if we adjourn for 3 or more days, we will have the ability of the State Finance Council to review what the governor does. Section 3.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Point of order has been called. What's,
I have a question for the majority leader.
um,
We are debating significant legislation, and it is my understanding we have not settled on our formal rules for the Senate. We are under temporary rules. I would just like an explanation of that before we move forward.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes, we have already given her the floor. Your point of order is not in order at this time. Senator from Johnson, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Section 3 does extend the declaration of state of disaster emergency to March 31st, 2021. Again, keeping that declaration in place allows the state to receive important federal funds and, again, to allow the legislature time to go through the legislative process to address the substantive issues of what the legislature enacted in HB 2016. Section 4 and Section 5 are what our revisor's office calls kind of technical fixes to keep in place the changes that the legislature made to the 1975-76 Emergency Management Act statute that are set to expire again January 26th. We're merely extending those to March 31st. Section 6. Section 6 covers the governor's authority to close businesses. The governor has stated recently that she doesn't have any intention to do that, so Section 6 merely codifies the governor's intention there and does state that there's no authority to substantially burden or inhibit the gathering or movement of individuals or close any businesses or religious or civic activities going forward. Section 7 keeps in place our telemedicine provisions. Section 8 keeps in place our temporary emergency licensures by the State Board of Healing Arts. Section 9 keeps in place our provisions regarding collaborative agreements on advanced practice registered nurses and the like. Section 10 keeps in place the business liability immunity protections, keeps that in place till March 31st, 2021. So it's a pretty simple bill. It's long. I apologize for the long explanation, but it's much needed for our citizens of Kansas, our businesses, our families, and with that, I'll stand for questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, before we move on to questions, the chair would just like to remind the body that we did pass SR 1703. That was the temporary orders that allowed this body to use the parliamentary procedure, plus the rules that we were operating under previous sessions, with the exception of our committee assignments. If you are in doubt of what those rules are, you can always look online on ks.legislature.org under Senate resolutions, and you can find it there and read it. So are there any questions for the Senator from Johnson? Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could the chair enumerate for me how many times the emergency declaration has been extended since it was first declared?
Senator Brown, is that question directed to the chair or to the carrier of the bill? If you will hold on, I will look.
If the chair would direct that to the chair of Judiciary, please.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For everyone's knowledge, Section 3 of Senate Bill 14 actually sets forth the procedure of how we got from March 12th, 2020, when the governor first declared the state of emergency, all the way to the actions of the State Finance Council, the actions of the governor to again proclaim a state of emergency, and extended to January 26, 2021. And what Senate Bill 14 would do is then extend it to March 31st, 2021. I can read for the senator from Brown if he chooses, but it's set forth there. I can stop for a minute and count, but it's set forth for all to see how it was extended, what dates, and then to what date in Section 3, page 5 of SB 14.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
Thank you. The point being, it has been extended multiple times. And so I guess my next question is, does the Chair of Judiciary expect this, if this legislation passes, extending it to March 31st, how many more times following March 31st do we expect for this emergency declaration to be extended?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
I don't think that's a question I can answer, how many times we expect the emergency declaration to be extended. It depends on, we've got vaccine distribution questions, we've got rising case rates. It's to be determined by the legislature if what action needs to be taken after March 31st. This extension to March 31st allows the deep dive that I believe is needed on the issue.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the Chair's opinion, the Chair of Judiciary's opinion, if this bill passes, does the Finance Council have sole authority, or would the legislature have authority over stopping a possible declaration over a 3-day period or whatever? Or are we given that authority over to the Finance Council?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While the legislature is in session, the legislature, by resolution, can terminate any declaration of emergency by the governor. While we're in session but adjourned for 3 or more days, with Senate Bill 14, the State Finance Council could act as it's been acting and require a majority vote to continue or terminate a governor-declared declaration of emergency.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would ask too, I can't recollect, was the Chair of Judiciary on the KEMA Special Committee this summer?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I was not.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
Well, one point that I know that was discussed at length in that committee meeting was that the Finance Council does not broadly or geographically represent the state of Kansas in a full sense. There were many concerns by members that a lot of the rural areas were not represented. You saw that demonstrated when many of the counties rejected the mandates that were sent out from the second floor. But over and over, the Finance Council has extended the emergency declaration. The Senator's correct in the fact that we could run a resolution, but I think right here today is a good opportunity for us to end the emergency declaration on January the 26th. I think there are a lot of people, and in fact I know there are a lot of people that believe that they're well educated enough to understand if they want to wear a mask, social distance, and all the details that go along with COVID-19. This emergency has been going on, and it's going to continue to go on and on and on. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we strike the enacting clause of Senate Bill 14. And what that does is kill the bill. And according to the reviser for the members in committee, I asked the reviser if we did such action, would that end the declaration? Yes. The other following question is, can the governor make a new declaration? And we have an attorney general's opinion that says legally the governor would be challenged to make the same declaration. So I think we know where we're at on that. I think that's a fair summary of that. But again, Mr. Chairman, I make my motion and believe that calls for a roll call vote.
There is a motion on the floor to strike the enacting clause. I will remind the body that during this motion, you are allowed to speak up to 2 times, no more than twice on this matter, and any discussion has to be related to the striking of the enactment clause. This time, the chair recognizes the senator from McPherson, Senate Vice President Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question for the senator from Brown. Does he know if there's any impact, if this passes, that it will have on the matching federal funds that come forth to our great state of Kansas?
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
I'm very thankful for that question because it shows the interest of matching federal funds and dollars versus the interest of our people in our state. And if we have been milking dollars and keeping our people under an emergency declaration for that sole interest, then that is a problem. Drive out into the counties. Talk to people. There are people that want to keep it in place. I'll agree. But my polling is 80% are ready for it to end. And I've asked waitresses, I've asked healthcare workers, I've asked farmers, I've asked business entities. When I walk in, are you ready for this to go away? Yes. All of them say. They want the freedom to continue practicing health care based on their education and the sources that they go to and trust. So thank you for that question. I'm not going to debate dollar figures with you. I'm not worried about that. I want the freedom put back in place so that we can freely go about our lives. And I think my constituency would support this action that I'm taking today, or I wouldn't be doing it. If I believe that Senate District 1 was not supportive of this action, I would not be doing it. But I believe they are. And so, Mr. Chairman, I hope that answers this question.
Senator from McPherson, Senate Vice President Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I respect the response from the good senator from Brown, but I do think it's a very delicate and balanced act that we're performing here. And more thought needs to be put into this before we make a judgment call this quick. So I thank you for the opportunity to respond.
The chair recognizes the senator from Butler, Senate President Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I won't belabor this. I'd simply ask for opposition of it because this is exemplary of what the misunderstanding is. I don't disagree that the constituents of Senator from Brown have that feeling. The problem is the result of his motion would be the opposite of that. This would be killing a bill that expands and extends the limitations that were imposed upon the executive for those. And it would simply, if things drop, there'd be a new emergency with all new expanded powers again. The power to close your church and your business. This gives us the opportunity, and we're also only talking 30, 45 days, right, to talk about what that deep dive looks like in the Emergency Act. We all know what has happened over this last year was not the intention of the language in the Act. That was the local floods, fires, tornadoes, where you can see some expansive powers needed for that very localized event. That got expanded to the entire state in an event where we have frontier counties and we have populated counties, and this one-size-fits-all deal didn't work. So that's why we put those limitations in place, and they passed. This is an extension of those limitations. And so I hate to say, but the opposite effect would happen. We would actually be empowering the executive and giving the opportunity for a new emergency with expanded powers. All this is the temporary status quo with some, but it's not even status quo, that's not right. There is, because it expanded, if you read it, the inhibition to close, businesses, churches, it goes to nonprofits and civics. It expanded those limitations. And to kill this would simply just put it in reverse. So I think the intention of the Senator from Brown is correct. I think the implementation is 180 from the intention. So I'd ask you as a body, we don't need to belabor this in debate. I think we know where but I'd like to let's put the motion down and continue on with business. So thank you.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't disagree more. The Attorney General opinion said the governor cannot reissue the same declaration without legal challenges. The governor would have a problem doing that, so it doesn't do a complete reversal. These things were put in place. I was actually a carrier of an amendment on some of this stuff back at the end of March, trying to keep certain Second Amendment issues freely operating and open for business, trying to keep things. We had a 2-hour debate on property issues. We had lengthy debate. But at the time, we didn't know what we were going into. We watched as schools were closed, churches were closed, businesses were closed. And you know what? We learned from it. It's not all negative. We learned that you can't do that. Under First Amendment, you can't close churches. It taught people about our Constitution, both federal and state. People have learned there are certain rights that you have that are God-given, that no governor, no president, no governmental entity should be able to take away or trample on. But we've learned. And you know what? Science came out and said, well, it wasn't really necessary to close schools. Depending on who you read, you'll get various opinions. But there are people right now today battling over policies in the schools at the local level. And I don't think they need an emergency declaration from this second floor, whoever, or finance council, whatever, to tell them how to live their lives. And this is your opportunity. You all just ran for election. You heard your constituents. This is your opportunity to say, we're here now. You know how many calls I got after we left this building wanting some action to deal with the issues that I just talked about, and we weren't here. One of the things that was discussed at length in those meetings was what is necessary, and there was one thing that I know several of us that that we agreed upon. We need a way to get this body back here to deal with these kind of issues. Instead of being dependent upon the governor calling a special session or a petition of 2/3 members of the legislature, which is nearly impossible to do, we need a way for us to get back here, which I will be introducing. Mr. Chairman, I will be introducing a constitutional amendment proposal which will allow the people the right to petition to call us back into session. I've just seen a rough draft, but as soon as I and the reviser get that right, I'm going to be introducing it. And hopefully, this body will take it up. Because it ought to be the people. You walk in the building down here, it says that the political power is inherent in the people. Well, it doesn't appear to me that they gave it to the people. Here's they gave it to the second floor and to this two bodies to try to call us back in session. Maybe the time the people call us back in session when we need. And we could kill this bill, pass that, and we can live comfortably. If we need to rein in a governor who wants to start doing the things that some of you think are going to happen if we kill this bill, which I disagree with, we'll have a way to do it. We need to get that passed, get it to the people, get it on the ballot as soon as possible. But what was said over here is wrong. The Attorney General has an opinion that says the governor is going to be in legal hot water if offered the same declaration that was offered before. It's time for it to end. It's been 10 months, and people need to get back to some normalcy of life. And yeah, wear your mask if you want to wear your mask. Businesses will still have the right to post if they want people to mask up when they come in, with or without an emergency declaration. Counties can try to do things. School boards should have local control anyway. We all believe that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I firmly disagree with what was stated from the senator from Bell.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that on? You know, the end of last session, we really rushed to end that, and we didn't properly get a debate. We were told we had 5 minutes to get a bill across the hall. We couldn't debate it. We couldn't properly debate it. And I think that's where we messed up. We didn't need to take 5 minutes. We should have taken 5 more days and debated there. I mean, what happened next? We closed churches, and then they went to court, found out they couldn't do that. We've closed the schools. We got the high school in Olathe open. We got the grade school open, but the middle school now is going back part-time. And quite frankly, the ones in the school district that have taken the biggest punishment from this has been the middle school. You know, going part-time or coming back remote, some kids learn better in classroom. Some struggle when they're not in the classroom. You know, I was just in Florida several weeks ago. That state has no mask order. That state, the commerce is going crazy. People are moving there in droves. Real estate prices are through the roof. People are leaving Michigan and New York and other places. Yet it's almost been a year, or was it 9 months, and we're still right back to where we started. We want to extend this. Well, I was at a business today eating lunch, and I asked them what they thought of the mask order. And they said they want it to go away as quick as possible. It's killing their business. And that's another thing. Well, a bar or a restaurant, they're saying close at 10 o'clock. I mean, what's so bad allowing them in my county to go to 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock? What's 3 hours, 2 hours difference going to make? When the box stores are wide open from day one and the grocery stores selling everything under the sun, or the home improvement centers, while certain stores, they've got time limits when they can be open, or they got capacity limits. It's not right what's going on. What we're going to have is, when the federal money runs out, the PP loans, we're going to have a bunch of broke businesses and an economy that's destroyed. And a bunch of you guys are going to be coming back here to raise taxes in the next couple of years. And you're going to want to re-amortize capers. You're going to want to take a little money from the highway department. You're going to borrow from the line, I guess you might call it, the PMIB. I can't wait to see some of them votes. It's time to get this economy back open. There's no reason A bunch of these counties should be wide open. They should have never been closed down. There's no reason why we're at 50% capacity in our restaurants in Johnson County. There's no reason why our kids are not going to school. In Lewisburg, they started school at the beginning of the school year. They're going all year. There's a lot of schools that are going. Who's losing are our kids. They've been set behind this year on their education considerably. There's been more teen suicides this year than ever. There's been more people that have missed medical appointments that have died than probably with COVID-19. There's been more elderly people give up on life because they can't see their family. There's been more false positive tests given. You know, I'll tell you a story. Son loves to play football, great quarterback. They got the school closed down. Them kids get together. They play every day. He throw the ball 70 yards. Not too bad for just turned 14. 20 of them kids get together. Well, a couple of days later, one of them supposedly tested positive. So they quarantine them all. How many of you think of them kids come down with it? 0. The other day I heard a story. I thought that was a pretty interesting story. Said they went down, this young friend of mine, young lady, a couple of kids went down to get tested. They were in line, filled out all the paperwork, was busy, and they decided kids were kind of acting up, said they'll do it later. They left. A couple days later, it got in the mail, they tested positive. Never taken the test. Yet, today, normally you would see the common cold. A lot of people, especially in this building, actually, it's not unusual. The crud get going up here and it just gets passed around. You don't hear anybody talk about the common cold. We're in the Midwest. I wonder how many of the people that tested positive for COVID-19 actually really had the common cold. I'll tell you, I'm ready to get this state back open. I'm ready to get rid of this mask. I'm willing to take the chance. And a lot of my constituents are too. That's what I heard repeatedly on the campaign trail. And I don't know, voting for the Senator from Brown's amendment or voting for the Senate Bill 14 is the right answer. But I can tell you, the people, all I heard all summer is they want me to come up and voice their concerns. It's time to get this state open. You can't keep restricting people from working, opening their businesses. We can't afford it. I mean, we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars paying for people's rent this year. Think about that. I mean, where's that money going to come from? I mean, $10 billion will probably go, I'm sorry, not billion, trillion. $10 trillion in debt this country's going to go through. At this rate, we're going to be broke. We've got to get this country open. We've got to get this state opened up. There's multiple states that have reopened. There's no reason why we're shut down now. There's definitely people sick with COVID-19. We need to take care of them people. But it's not everybody, and it's not as big as they're saying on these positive tests. I guarantee it. We need to get this state open, or we're going to have a problem in the future. We're not going to be, the taxes that we're going to need to raise are going to be so large that a lot of you won't be wanting to make them votes. And it won't be a one-time vote. They're setting you new people up for failure on large tax increases. And they're going to try to re-amortize capers. That's just shoving the debt off to your kids. That's all it's doing. It's like taking a 5-year car loan and you're almost to the end and put another 5 years on the end. Car's going to be wore out before you get done using it. But I'm up here to get the state back on track and to end this order, end the powers of the governor to be able to shut this down. So I will vote for Senate Bill 14, but I hope the chairman will eliminate this order and get this state back on track. I'm just so frustrated right now. Me, my family, my Senate district, and the people I'm hearing from. I think America's frustrated. I think the mental health right now of this country is beating down because people want to work. They want to get back to normal. And there's just no path to get back to normal if people don't start talking about getting rid of these orders and getting rid of these mask orders. We'll be here next year this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell, would you like to respond? Senator from Butler, Senate President Masterson, this will be your second time to speak on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the reminder. Just almost a little quick note, quick housekeeping. Because I empathize with every remark that was made. We're hearing it from us. So that's the irony of some of these discussions, right? We're trying to get to the same place, and this happens even across the aisle. I think everybody trying to get to the same place or have the same intention, but very different views on how to get there. I'm hearing all the same things when I get there. The quick note would be in the very opinion quoted of the AG that said the governor would not have a legal, admitted she still could, right? Like any opinion, it'd have to be litigated. And so damage done before you can even get into court. So that's the response to that. Yeah, I even agree with the AG's opinion, and this is still the right way to go. And two, since we haven't had a lot of freshman training, just kind of this is something we usually get into further down the road, some of these kind of procedural pieces. So just so everybody knows, so the motion made was to basically, for the enacting clause, is to kill the bill. So when we come through roll call, a no vote actually continues our discussion on the bill, if that makes sense, right? Because they were voting no on the motion to kill it. I just want to make sure, but that's not a no vote on the bill. And then we'll be back on discussion, and we can continue debate, and then we'll move on to that. But I just want to make sure, especially for those that are just brand new to the process, I know the House members know this, and some others, and the veterans do, but just as the procedure happens, the no vote would be on the motion to kill it. Is not a no vote on the bill, and then we can get back to discussion. So just a quick housekeeping note, and I'll sit down, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Brown, Senator Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along those lines of the Attorney General, there's a vast difference. We're here now. We're here now. In the emergency declaration, the governor's announced she's running for office again. We're here now. We'll be here till March 31st. If you pass this, put it back under the Finance Council, off and on. We're here now. We're here till March 31st unless there's some expedition, which I got a question. I've been here. This is my 5th term. I don't know that we've ever ran substantive legislation like this in the first week session. For all you that are new, this is rare. And as was alluded to with a point of order attempt, we don't have permanent rules. It should be a priority for a deliberative body. Speeding it through. This has been a hurried up attempt. I've failed to see a lot of what we talked about in the KEMA special committee members. Senator from Johnson, I'm speaking to Senator on the back row over there. He was in those meetings. He knows that we were all concerned about the Finance Council and the lack of geographic representation. And a lot of us talked about and discussed the fact that maybe we need to create a special committee that would have oversight under a declaration of emergency. Don't see that in here either. Those were two, what I thought were great objectives that should have come out, should have been what we were prioritizing right now. I'm not afraid of giving, right now, repealing this, ending the declaration. I'm not afraid to put freedom back in place, let the second floor govern. I think the second floor has probably learned through this, just like all of us have learned, that it's time to govern. Maybe not start closing schools. It's not time to close churches, not time to close businesses. I don't think that'll happen. But even if it did, we're here. We're here. And I'll guarantee you, if we need to move fast, we can move fast. Because if the people of Kansas want us to move, we will. I'm going to read, give me a second here to pull it up. Something that came out. Kansas, and this is from Havers. I don't know how many of you get it, but it says, Kansas called in the right direction. Kansas has its COVID-19 numbers headed in the right direction, according to Governor Kelly. Speaking to a cluster of reporters this afternoon, Kelly said that Kansas has the largest downward 2-week trend of any state. After an unfortunate spike in cases over the past weeks, today I am pleased to report that Kansas is one of only 3 states seeing a downward trend. The past 10 months have been a long and challenging road. I agree with that. But at this time, cases are going down in our state and vaccinations are going up. As of this morning, the state has vaccinated 93,000 some odd individuals. Anyway, I could read more. It's positive news. Time to end the emergency declaration. We haven't seen a resolution to do so introduced. So when this bill came out, and the reviser told me that if we strike the enacting clause, January 26th it ends, which, by the way, is another 12 days. So great little period here, 12 days to see what happens. We've got plenty of time. The right action for the people of Kansas is to end the declaration. So I ask you to vote yes to striking the enacting clause. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other senator that would like to speak on the enacting clause before we take it to a roll call vote? Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in opposition to the motion. A lot of senators have spoken before me. I empathize with the concerns. We all have stories to tell living through this pandemic for our families, our businesses, that we've heard from our constituents. I myself have 3 kids in public schools, and that's been a challenge. I have a father-in-law who's his health is compromised, and that's been difficult to visit with him as well. So while we empathize, we need to have time to do the deeper dive for the very reasons that some of the senators who spoke before me and the maker of the motion have stated. This bill, Senate Bill 14, is an extension of what the legislature did in June 2020, so that we can go through the legislative process and do the deep dive that's required. It's not hurried. We have known since we left special session in June 2020 that January 26, 2021 was coming. So we've put in place Senate Bill 14 to address that deadline, to give the legislature, now that we're back in session, the time through March 31st, 2021 to do the deep dive. I would like to remind the body that it's not the legislature that closed businesses or closed schools or closed churches. And Senate bill actually keeps in place the protections that many of us are concerned about those types of closures. In fact, Section 6 of Senate Bill 14 extends the protections for our businesses, for our schools, and those kinds of activities. Excuse me. It includes religious activities and civic and business activities. It doesn't specifically address the schools. Someone mentioned the Second Amendment. That's a protection that we enacted in June 2020 that would actually be extended through Senate Bill 14. So there's nothing hurried about the process other than we have January 26, 2021 ahead of us. There's only 12 days. One of those is a federal holiday where we're not in session. So we need to do the deep dive through our legislative process, have the different committees take a look at this. The Senator from Brown serves on Judiciary Committee and had the opportunity to raise these issues. So we're ready to move forward on this. We're ready to extend this deadline so this deliberative body can do the work and have the time it needs to do the work on these issues. And I would ask that the body vote no on the motion.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
A vote no is to extend the emergency declaration. Your constituents will know, any that are listening in will know that you are voting. It couldn't be clearer. You are voting to extend the emergency declaration until March 31st. Keep all of that in place. Vote yes ends it on January 26th. Let's freedom again open up in Kansas. Puts the governor back in her rightful place. And as I stated, Kansas is going in the right direction. Vaccinations are up. COVID-19 numbers are headed down. Today is the day we get to make that decision. Let's end it 12 days from now. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for the Senator from Brown on the motion to strike the enacting clause? Just a reminder for the body before we take this roll call vote that a vote in favor of striking the enacting clause will kill Senate Bill 14, and it will not be a debate will cease, the bill will die. A vote no against the striking the enacting clause will end the debate on the strike the enacting clause, and then we would be back on the main motion of passing Senate Bill 14. So with that, the clerk will call roll. Point of order for Senator Haley.
Yes, the chair has given that it's a roll call vote. Are we suspending the request that showing of hands for those who are requesting that vote?
Because the motion on the floor is striking the enactment clause, that is an automatic roll call vote.
Thank you for the clarity, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Clerk will now call roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Estes. Fagg. Fauskido. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Close. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Steffen. Straub. Sullentrop.
The senator had an opportunity to vote. Does any senator wish to change their vote? The clerk will now close the roll and tally the vote. Oops, sorry. Roll's still open. I didn't give everybody an opportunity to explain their vote. Is there any senator that would like to explain their vote? Okay, the clerk will close the roll. Five voting in favor, 31 voting against. That motion has failed. We are now back on the bill. Are there any questions for the senator from Johnson about the bill? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few questions for the senator from Johnson, if she would stand for them.
Is she standing?
Thank you. I appreciate the intent of this to extend the dates, but I just have two questions about some other changes in the bill. And the first one has to do with the additional wording that if the legislature is not in session or is adjourned during session for 3 or more days. This is on page 3 and it's line 34. And my question really comes up because we will be adjourned this weekend for 3 or more days. And I'm wondering why that time was picked. We also have turnaround coming up and we will be adjourned for 4 days. I certainly believe that such wording should be in effect during our longer break in April, but I'm wondering why the number 3 was chosen for that number of days.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the 3 or more days, yes, we are in session. Yes, we will be adjourned. We might be in session our regular week in February, and as we had to adjourn in March of 2020 due to the pandemic, we want to have something in place that if we have to unexpectedly adjourn for 3 or more days, we want the legislature, the bill provides the legislature the authority through the SFC to review the executive branch's actions. The 3 or more days was selected because 3 days, to adjourn for 3 days, requires action by both chambers of the legislature to, if you will, adjourn for 3 or more days. So that's why the 3 was picked, not, for instance, we adjourn, on a Monday, we were adjourning till 2:30 tomorrow. So this takes into account if the legislature, both bodies adjourn for 3 or more days, is why the 3 was picked.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that might be the reasoning. I think if we review this again, if there's this situation that we're going to have on March 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, when we are adjourned after turnaround, that I would prefer that the legislature be dealing with any changes and not, in this case, the members of the State Finance Council. But I appreciate that response. The second question I had has to do with the changes to the opportunities for a Board of County Commissioners to issue an order relating to public health that includes provisions that are less stringent. So my first part of that would be, my understanding is a local health officer can issue orders that are more stringent Is that the case?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing in SB 14 changes the Board of County Commissioners' authority that we put in place prior to today, prior to Senate Bill 14. Nothing changes the ability or authority of a public health officer that's already in place as we stand here today. We did put in place that the Board of County Commissioners can include provisions that are less stringent than the provision of any executive order. That stays in place. We can do the deeper dive on that issue, which many members of the body have approached me and said, we need to do a deeper dive on that. And we will. That's the intent of extending the deadline to March 31st, 2021, so we can do this deeper dive. To answer the question about whether public health officials, this provision only, and I think we're really talking about what's on page 7 of SB 14, subsection H of section 4. And that the Board of County Commissioners, like I said, can issue an order that make the following findings of fact and do this in the order, and that's enumerated there. We're not changing any of that with SB 14, and many counties have been enacting such orders and some haven't, so we've kind of left it to local control when we were in special session in June 2020, and that's where we are. If we enact SB 14, or if we pass SB 14, that's where we will be till March 31st, 2021.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the comment from the senator from Johnson that they will be taking a deeper dive. So I will just note that a concern I had with the wording is that the board has consulted, and this is on 1 under H, that the board has consulted with the local health officer or other local health officials. My concern to that is we have identified, and the county, or the Board of County Commissioners has identified local health officers. And I think if we expand it to other local health officials, we are letting that Board of Commissioners determine among a number of people who might work with them or be willing to go along with an order. And I think there's a lot of responsibility. We have given our local health officers. I hope that the committee might consider whether that responsibility should rest with that one individual or be expanded. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the start of the conversation that, yes, the legislature will have on that issue and many others.
Senator from Johnson, Senate Minority Leader Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, just a comment. I will be supporting this legislation, but I would like to reiterate that we are passing significant legislation while we are under temporary rules. 14 of our members were not here, and we did pass the temporary rules, but as one of the senators addressed on Monday, he did not have those in his hand at the time. So I believe we should have voted as a body on permanent rules before debating these rules, but as I mentioned, I will be supporting this legislation.
Are there any other questions on the bill? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've had good, robust debate on Senate Bill 14. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 14 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. My motion is carried. We will now turn our attention to Senate Bill 13. The chair recognizes the senator from Lynn County, Senator Tyson, to explain the bill and to adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. That motion is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 13 there are actually 5 items in the bill, well, 4 items, 4 major items in the bill. I'll briefly touch on each of those and then explain them. The first is to establish a public hearing. We have truth in taxation in the state of Kansas, and this expands this to transparency with our property tax. The second is to prohibit valuation increases when you're doing normal maintenance on the home. Third is to, actually this is an idea, all of this bill is ideas from several individuals grouped together, but I would like to call out Representative Kelly, an effort to allow county treasurers the option to set up payment plans for individuals for property taxes. The fourth portion of the bill, a major portion that often gets left out, is repealing the current property tax lid. In the transparency portion of the bill, what happens is there's a revenue neutral rate established so that if the valuations increase for a taxing authority, if they want to bring in $1 more, 1 penny more, then there is a process that is defined in this bill where they would have to notify each taxpayer by mail. They can post, if there's a website available, that they're going to have a truth and taxation hearing. And then they would post the date and the time of the hearing, and the governing body would be required to vote at that meeting. They can have meetings before, they can talk to their constituents before, but on the date and the notice of the public hearing, they would decide whether to raise your property taxes or not. There's several, we've talked about this legislation quite a bit, and I will stand for questions, but I want everybody to know how this legislation came about. I've been in the legislature, and my constituents, it's a constant theme that I hear about is property taxes. They are disgruntled with how high they are. They don't understand the process. They may call their local government and ask why they went up. They'll be told to call Topeka. They call Topeka. We tell them to call back to the local government. All this does is makes it clear, why did my property taxes actually increase? The second portion of it, we have individuals that will maintain their home. They'll have a hail damage on their roof and have to put a new roof on. And as a result of that, they may or may not have a valuation increase. So this just clarifies it. If you're doing normal maintenance on your home, you would not have, the valuation would not increase, and therefore your property taxes would not increase as a result of valuation. They could increase because the mill levy changes or other reasons, but not because of the valuation. The third portion, to expand the option to pay, we have some counties right now, county treasurers are giving the option to allow their constituents a payment plan, and this just clarifies that every county clerk in the state will have the opportunity to do that. The fourth part of the bill, the property tax lid, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the property tax lid allows an automatic increase of a CPI index every single year. I spoke to the State Treasurers Association one year, and we had the group was, yes, I'll answer that phone, just a second. The group would, there was, that's so funny. There was a couple of counties out west. There was one county that the treasurer told me that we force them to increase property taxes every single year with that lid. And I questioned that. I said, we didn't force you to do anything. And she said, yes, you did. We have to increase taxes by that CPI index every single year in order to not have to go to a vote of the people. And there are so many exclusions in the property tax lid. I know that there's several counties that with the CPI lid is approximately 2 to 3%. And I know there's several counties in the state that we're looking at 4, 5, possibly 10% increases on your property tax this year. So let's just get rid of the lid, give local control, allow them to be able to do what they need to do to get their job done. There is a penalty portion to the bill. We do have some taxing authorities that are ignoring the lid, not following the law. So there is a penalty portion in this that if the taxing authority collected without going through the transparency process, they would be required to send that money back. So there's some concerns that you may have a dime or a little amount. My response to that is not flippant. It is very important. Do not break the law. Follow the law. You'll never have to send those refunds back. We've also heard questions about the date, the implementation. There are many moving parts to this legislation as far as individuals, I should say stakeholders. The county treasurers, county clerks, city clerks, taxpayers, appraisers. It doesn't really impact the appraisers, but they kick off the process. Many people involved. And so the dates may be, one group wanted, in fact, I called one of my county clerks before I was carrying the bill today. I wanted to make sure that I understood where they were at on the dates because another county clerk was asking to change the dates from July 15th to August 15th and then the hearings from September 10th to October 10th. That would give county clerks 10 days in order to certify their budgets for all of their taxing authorities. 10 days. This current bill allows for 30 days. I think the clerks would agree they would want to leave this at 30 days. I know that everybody's had the bill and had a chance to look at it. This is not new legislation to this body. It passed the Senate a couple of times last year. The last time it passed was in Senate Conference Committee Report, House Bill 2702. It passed this chamber 35-2. I know this is a new body, and I hope that everybody's taken a close look at it. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the senator from Lynn? Senator from Fanny, Senator Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we all can recall back, at least some of us, on July 2nd of this year, we were all working hard campaigning for our primary, and the order came out about masks and such. My phone just blew up. Just all my local people were having parades or whatever on July 4th. This mandate, we just went nuts. I called the lieutenant governor's office. I called the governor's office. The governor called back. We discussed it, and then finally she said it's just a strong recommendation. I said, great, that's all I need to know. So, July 2nd, it was, July 4th is Independence Day. I said, man, if you could just push this back, I could understand maybe where she was coming from. But to do it on the 4th of July weekend, I couldn't understand. You know, the carrier of the bill brings up the tax lid. Tax lid came about in a veto session in 2015. I think if we recalled people that were here, I was in the House at that time. That was one of those we went way into June and such. Tax lid was kind of like this today. You know, it didn't age well at all. I think everybody will agree that the tax lid did not age well. This will not age well. We're going to be here 5 years from now, 6 years. You guys will be. I won't be. But you guys will be here, and you're going to be discussing this bill. Because every time we try to put a mandate on local and county government, we always seem to come back because it doesn't age well. Maybe it's because county and local government know what they're doing. They have hearings. At these hearings, on the hearing when they put it out, people are allowed to come to these hearings. My 6 years in city government, no one showed up. I talked to a county official, no one showed up. This is what I'm seeing here. You know, you people that, this is you're going to be your second vote that you make as a public official for some of you. And then you're going to get, I'm telling you, you're going to get postcarded if you vote against this. You're going to get postcarded by the chamber, just like we did on the tax lid. We got the same, it was incredible, the ones I was getting. This is a vote alert. You look at your emails, you got a vote alert. That's a postcard vote. They did the same thing on the tax lid because it was going to be the cat's meow. Why don't we allow local government to do their job and be a helping hand instead of a hammer? You know, we talk about, and property taxes they're the Lucifer of taxes. They're the most harmful taxes there are to businesses, to people. There's no question. I can remember going in and seeing the Governor Brownback back when we were the Brownback experiment. And I said, you know, Governor, you're absolutely right. We're overtaxed. It's a tax burden. You just picked the wrong tax. Property tax is beating people up. So I don't argue what the senator from Lynn is doing. One of the things that I find interesting, you know, we're going to send this letter out. They have to have this letter 10 days prior to so they can study it, so they can grasp, they can discuss the property tax and how it's going to raise or what it's going to be used for. But yet we had 4 days here. I mean, we come in here on Monday and it's introduced. We have a hearing on Tuesday. You know, I have a county seat that's 7 hours and 20 minutes from here. 7 hours and 20 minutes. They could do it virtually. That virtually stuff, you know, we didn't have any bugs or anything on Tuesday in the committees I was in. 7 hours and 20, that's a 15-hour trip almost for a county seat. So the people out west, again, were neglected in this thing. But here we got to get this letter to them by 10 days prior to, so they got time to do it. So we're going to give them plenty of time to do it while we here who are making this legislation have virtually this gets thrown in our faces. You guys are coming across the hall, you know, we call this a grease bill. This bill's been greased. It's out of here. I could sit here and talk to them blue in the face. It's going across the rotunda. They got the 21. They wouldn't have brought it up over the line if they didn't have the 21. And so don't be foolish and vote unless you're ready to get postcarded. I got 27 when I ran in 26. I put them on a Christmas tree. They make a good ornaments and such. But with all this, you know, what I want to propose is I have an amendment. I want to propose an amendment there, Mr. Chairman.
Have you turned it in?
I have.
What is the number?
It's 0480.
Okay, if you'll give us a minute to hand it out. Senator from Findlay, Senator Dahl, would you like to have your amendment read, or would you like to explain
I
it?
can kind of explain it if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Prior to 2000, it's still in legislation today, we had what was called the LATVR. I might have those initials, but what it was the, it was revenue sharing. And we sent, what was it, 53 million, 54 million that was split up, 27 million at a time back to the counties. If you recall, when we had great increases in property taxes was after 2002, because this is when they shut this thing down. It's not been in the, it's still listed there, but it's not been budgeted since 2002. What this amendment does would make this a demand transfer so that our counties would get this money that must be applied to property taxes. This is true property tax relief. Instead of pounding them over the head with mandate after mandate that we're going to come back here for just like the tax lid, and we're going to say, man, didn't work out too well. 5 years from now, we can give them some help, some true help. With that, I move my amendment.
Before moving your amendment, Senator from Finney,
move it now?
Some questions? Would you stand for some questions, please?
I'd prefer none, but
Are there any questions on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure he would prefer none. Will the good senator from Finney stand for a question?
He's standing. Senator from Lynn.
Thank you. I would ask, what's the fiscal note?
Senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
I have a hearing problem, and since I'm not supposed to look at her, she's going to have to speak up because I can't hear her.
Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson, would you repeat your question, please?
What is the fiscal note?
Senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
Well, if you take 27 million twice, that's 54 million. I think it'd probably be about 54 million a year. I don't have it here right there handy, but that's probably what it is, about 54 million a year.
Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I understand the efforts of the good senator, I would make a suggestion that he change this to remove the 1.5 mil that all statewide taxpayers pay and put that money in the taxpayer's pocket instead of growing local government. I understand that they have not had the ad valorem for several years. I have voted to get that money to the governments. I voted for it when I was in the House. I have voted for it in the Senate. However, I do not think this is the vehicle for this. I would, if the good senator would be amenable to it, I would actually allow for a bill introduction and we could have a hearing on this.
Senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
I have nothing.
Are there any further questions for the Senator from Finney? Senator from Montgomery, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a question of the Senator from Finney.
Senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
I can't answer until I know the question.
Will he stand for a question?
He's standing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question that I have for the maker of the motion is there any, I didn't see in the amendment any language that required the local unit of government to reduce property taxes if this were to be implemented. If the LAVTRF were to be reinstated or funded, is there any requirement for local units of government to indeed reduce property taxes?
Senator Finney, Senator Dahl.
I believe that's the intent of it, if not there expressively. You know, where it is expressively is when we have elections. And so if they're not taking that money and putting it in to their property tax. So no, I don't know if it's there expressively, Senator from Montgomery.
Senator from Montgomery, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that is vital to this having a chance of me considering voting for it. I support reduction of property taxes, but I do not support just giving additional money to local units of government without accountability to the taxpayers, without a reduction. So because of that, I have in the past, by the way, introduced such amendments that required money that came from the local ad valorem tax reduction fund to reduce property taxes. So because of the fact that I don't see this in here, I just can't support at this point in the state's fiscal situation this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Fanny, Senator Dahl, would you like to respond?
I understand what the good senator from Montgomery is saying, and I appreciate what he's saying. I just feel sorry that he doesn't have the faith in his county and local officials to make the right decisions. You know, when we vote and when we run and when we campaign, we insist on our people to be accountable. So if they don't do it like that, we try to vote them out. So, you know, so if we have to, there again, hit them with the hammer instead of giving them help, that I understand where he's coming from.
Are there any more questions on the amendment? Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a feeling this amendment is not going to pass. So again, I make my offer. If the good senator would withdraw the amendment, I would be glad for a bill introduction, and we will have a hearing in the Senate Tax Committee if the bill is referred to Senate Tax.
Senator from Fanny, Senator Dahl.
When time is appropriate, I'll move my amendment.
Are there any further questions on this amendment? Seeing none, Senator, you may move your amendment.
I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Fanny.
Too late. I want a roll call vote.
Okay. There's been a roll call vote called. Seeing 5 hands, a roll call vote is in order. The clerk will call roll.
Ellie. Baumgartner. Billinger. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Estes. Fagg. Vascudo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Close. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Steffen. Straub. Sullentrop. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator McGinn. Is there any other senator that would like to vote or hasn't voted? Does any senator wish to change their vote? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I thought I detected something in here I liked. I wanted to make sure I had some backup. I changed my pass to I. Right thing to do. Thank you.
Is there any other senator that would like to change their vote? Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle. Yes, hold on just a second, please. Currently 8 in favor, 26 opposed. Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
I want to explain my vote for the body here briefly. Of course, this will be my 19th session. When I first came to the House, back starting in 2003, 2004, at that time, Governor Sebelius, one of the things she did with the legislature, and this was a big initiative with the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, I believe they eliminated the M&E property taxes. And as a result, what happened to that is you saw a significant reduction into the state coffers from that source of property tax revenue that was traditionally used to push out to LAVTRF. One of the things we learned about in the past years we've looked at this, once again, I commend Chairwoman Tyson for the work that she has done on this bill, because she has really left no stone unturned the past number of sessions looking at these issues. The thing you have to keep in remember, obviously, with property taxes is basically, you know, when you're sending tax revenues somewhere for relief, you also have to figure out where those revenues are coming from to pay for that. And I think at this point in time, I want to echo the chairwoman's comments. I think it's very appropriate to submit a bill to look at that. But given the need we have with COVID, obviously the increased stress on social services and the programs for our constituents that are literally trying to keep a roof over their heads right now, I'm not sure that's something that necessarily is a priority to pony up. We'll let that be the decision of the body in tax, wherever it may go to at a later date. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other senator that would like to explain their vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the rolls. Seven having voting in favor and 27 voting against, that motion fails. We are now back on the bill. Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
There were some comments made by the last speaker. May I address those quickly?
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as transparency goes, the bill was pre-filed. I sent it out. I tried to send it to all legislators. I'm sure I missed some because I had to do it one at a time. But I did send the bill out and ask if anybody wanted to co-sponsor. I wanted them to know in advance. And we pre-filed the bill. It was posted on the internet. Our schedule, the tax committee schedule, was posted that we were having a hearing on the bill. We have been completely transparent through this process. Yes, it is expedient, but we all know that we are in unique situation with the pandemic and other things going on throughout our country. We passed this bill last year in February and sent it to the House. And in March, we were shut down for business. We did come back for one day. And so I am just trying to make sure that this bill doesn't get lost in the shuffle if something should happen. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always available for questions or understanding of legislation. As far as a government mandate, again, to the counties and local governments, they are established by our statutes. That's how this works. The state government has formed those governments. And we see that the process could be improved, will be improved, and that's why this legislation is being proposed. Some of you may not be aware. This process, we came up with it by looking at other states. Utah and Tennessee turned out to be the two base models. This legislation and process has been in place in Utah for over 30 years. I started looking at other states too. Minnesota uses a similar process. This does not lower property taxes. What it does is give back local control and allow locals to be transparent with their process and to do their business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland. Senator from Johnson, Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of this bill. While local control, local government, they should have the controls. There are times they abuse that control. And during the course of this pandemic, in my district, during the middle of the pandemic, when people were being laid off, businesses were being shuttered and closed down, one of our cities in the district voted to give the city manager a 25% raise. That's an abuse. My own personal property taxes over the last couple of years have the assessment, not the property tax, not the mill levy, but the assessment itself has gone up over $60,000. I haven't done a thing to the house, and yet government continues to build larger buildings without anybody having a say. In my opinion, this is just a way to give our citizens the transparency they need to weigh in. I walked over 1,000 miles on the campaign trail, primary and general this year, talked to all sorts of people. Not one said, please let me pay more taxes. There were a number of folks on fixed income that were concerned that their valuations keep going up and they keep paying higher property taxes as a result of those assessments. And they're worried that they can't stay there. If we run people out of the state, if we run businesses out of the state because we're taxing them to death, that's going to affect the revenues and the bottom line. So I rise in support of this bill, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too rise in strong support of this bill. And for what it's worth, I'd like to provide a little bit of context on it. First, I do want to repeat, I very much want to recognize Chairwoman Tyson for her work that has gone into this bill. I've been her ranking now. This will be at least my 5th year, starting my 5th. Chairwoman Tyson, I mean, we literally had multiple sessions where we looked at property tax issues across the state of Kansas. We looked at it on farmland. We looked at it on certain types of equipment and silos. And we looked at business taxes. We looked at buildings in inner city Wyandotte County. We looked all over the state of Kansas. We talked about issues and we brought in people. I personally have no problems at all. In fact, I understand exactly why the chairwoman got this bill out of the gate. We are operating in a COVID environment right now. And quite honestly, who knows if this legislature may be temporarily shut down if we have some sort of spike in infections. Who knows? But the point is that, I feel totally comfortable because we really vetted this bill last year. We did. We had lots of people before it. And I also want to compliment the chairwoman on the way in which we worked this bill in a bipartisan effort in committee. She is totally correct. When you look at this bill, this isn't something that was dreamed up out of the sky. Other states use a form of this bill. Okay, but the thing that I am especially appreciative of the chairwoman for what she did is that she brought in witnesses, both sides of the issue. And it wasn't just a black versus white type of thing. You had a lot of people in the middle of the gray. They saw good things of it. They had concerns. And she led the committee last year in putting together a product that I think addressed those concerns appropriately. A little bit of background here for those of you particularly new to the legislature. Do y'all know where the property tax bill came from? I mean, this was a result of going back to the Brownback administration. If you will recall, we had the income tax cuts in 2012 that were done. You will also recall that those tax cuts had to be repealed. And so at the time, the legislature chose to make the decision to raise sales taxes. And believe me, property taxes are definitely not popular. But I will also tell you, at least in my neighborhood, raising of sales taxes is not either. And so basically, to get certain folks to vote for those deals, the concept of the property tax lid came about, because this was going to be the magic bullet that controlled property taxes rising. Okay? And as the chairwoman alluded to, obviously it hasn't been. When you think about the concept of the whole property tax lid, of having a CPI every year that you're going to allow local units of government to raise every year some X amount of percentage, if you take a step back, think about how inane that really is. When you look across this great state of Kansas, we have certain parts of the state that experience high economic growth. We have other parts of this state that are receding into the backwaters, okay? They're shrinking. And she's exactly right, as we had counties basically, regardless if they were growing like, you know, whatever, or if they were shrinking, the problem was they were always taking that CPI every year. And they were doing it to protect their own self-interest, because they realized if they didn't, and if for some reason they had an economic rainy day, they were going to have to rely on those monies that they had, quote unquote, banked from previous years. So if you talk about basically what this bill does, it gets rid of a moral hazard for taxpayers. Because now I'm not worrying about, particularly if I live in an area that is stagnant or shrinking economic growth, I'm not having to worry about my local units of government grabbing that. I think that's a big deal for taxpayers. I want to be real clear about this too. This is not going to be a panacea for everything. If you still live in a high growth area in this state, okay, you're still going to see property taxes go up. And one of the reasons we have that happening in this state is because when you think about high growth areas, you have lots of businesses coming in. Okay, what do local units like to do? They like to abate commercial property taxes. And guess what happens? That gets shifted onto residential property owners. But what this bill does, it helps provide transparency so that everybody across the state, regardless of where they live, they get a window into the decision that was made when it comes to property tax bill that they receive. Another point I want to make is that when the bill was originally introduced, I had some very grave concerns about the bill. I thought basically the notification provisions were incredibly onerous. I want to take my hat off to the chairwoman. She got that window down, made that very manageable in my opinion. There were some provisions there about including the school districts as one of those local units that had to figure into this deal. A number of us had some potentially constitutional questions from school finance, what that would mean. That got removed. So we have a very workable bill here. This has been totally vetted. Once again, I can't thank the chairwoman enough for the process she had, the inclusiveness she showed, how the committee came together, Republicans and Democrats, to put together a bill that I think is going to move the state forward positively when we talk about a tool for managing property taxes. So I will sit down. I've spent my bullet for the day, Mr. Chairman. But I do think this is good legislation, and I would ask for the body's support. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got the email asking me if I wanted to support the bill or become part of it or sign on. Definitely support what the chairman's been doing, her work over the last several years. Property tax is probably the most regressive way to tax someone. In my area, we've seen property values go through the roof. You know, they do raise the rates sometimes. Other times you're seeing property values go through the roof like you've seen in Johnson County. They've got to be flushed with tons of extra revenue, over the last, I'd say last 5 or 6 years, seeing the valuations just going through the roof. I think my personal residence alone went up about $800. Sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money to me. I pay a lot of property tax on a lot of different properties. And I think across the state, in the rural cities, you know, your property tax on your vehicles, it's just the most aggressive form of taxation. When you go to other states, they don't have. My biggest concern is where I live in Johnson County is we have a change right now going on, and I'm seeing it across the state, even around the Capitol. The commercial buildings that are becoming vacant, I think you're going to see less and less commercial property, and I think they're very large taxpayers. I'm sure there's plenty abated, but the ones that are not abated, I think they'll be repurposed. And so in that aspect, I think we're going to see the counties are going to be struggling for revenue because of a lot of these big, you know, the Best Buys and the different large commercial strip centers that are vacant. I mean, I drive around the Capitol the last few days, and I haven't seen so many buildings up for sale around the Capitol. I don't know this market very well, but commercially it looks like it's struggling too. Residential, the way I hear, Topeka's doing really good. Valuations are going up. But, you know, people are struggling, and this is, you know, one of the toughest forms of taxation. You know, it hits them twice a year. You know, I've got real estate in both Kansas and Missouri, and, you know, I go to pay them both in person, and it doesn't matter where you go. On the Missouri side, they complain too, and I tell them, you know, if you had to pay the taxes I pay in Kansas, you wouldn't complain because it's 60%, you know, for the ones in Missouri than the ones in Kansas. So I love what she's doing. I know she's worked hard over her career to try to lower property tax. I think this is a good start, but we've got a lot of work to do on property tax. And, you know, people are being taxed out of their houses. So, thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senate Minority Leader Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting this legislation, and I believe the underlying policy of Senate Bill 13, government transparency, is something that we all support for the government in Kansas. I have heard from constituents that there is some room for improvement in the legislature, and I am slightly concerned that it did move very quickly. Some of our colleagues haven't even been in the chamber for a week yet, and this non-emergency legislation has moved forward with stunning quickness, even when we have continued to neglect to vote on Medicaid expansion, which would also help support Kansans. So despite trepidation, I will be supporting it, but I do look forward to the legislation receiving additional scrutiny when it goes over to the House and coming back to us in the best possible product. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to rise in support of this legislation. I also want to say that Senator Tyson, as you've heard many speakers say tonight, that she did a great job going all over the state, finding what the issues were, and coming up with a great bill. I do want to know that, or want people to know that in my district, property tax appraisals have went up anywhere from 120% to 175% over the last 20 years, while inflation has only went up about 40 to 50% during that same time frame. So it has outpaced it 3 to 1 in some cases. People can't afford it. our people in our rural areas are moving out, and we're losing population in our rural counties. We've heard that today. We've heard it over the last year, and we can't afford to lose these people in Kansas. So I support this legislation. I think that it's going to pass overwhelmingly, and thank you very much.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question on the bill for the senator from Lynn.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I first should also add my appreciation to the senator from Lynn as the committee chair, also the other committee members and the conferees. I recognize that changes have been made that I think have been very positive and good work done on understanding this. So the question I have is really just to make sure that I understand the calculations of the revenue neutral rate. If a new subdivision is built in a community and that's adding valuation to that community, but also adding costs in terms of serving that community with fire protection and police. How is that how are those additional funds addressed in calculation of the revenue neutral rate?
Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the good senator for the question. I'm glad she asked it. I actually added it to my notes to address those items. This legislation does not include any automatic increases as the LID did. The LID, we allowed the CPI index, we had exclusions for emergency, we had several items that, that lost the focus of what the LID was for. So what this bill does is it just says the valuation may go up or down, and the revenue neutral rate is calculated in order so the same dollar amount is collected from the previous year. So yes, we have inflation. Yes, we have new construction. We have items that could be automatically built in. But instead, we're just saying, let's be transparent. I love Kansas. I love Kansans. I feel like they're very reasonable people. We understand that we want roads, bridges, we want good schools. We know that takes tax dollars. So let's just be transparent with them and tell them why the increase is coming. I think we're reasonable people, and we understand at times there are increases needed. So that's the intent of the bill.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that answer. I agree that there were probably too many opportunities for things to be exempted, but would be concerned that if there is an increase in valuation in the county, and in fact, the revenue neutral rate or the rate would reduce people's property taxes that may not be reflected in the revenue neutral rate. That revenue neutral rate would still increase, is my understanding, even if your property taxes did not. And because of that, I would be concerned about the requirement for the sending out of all the notices. That's the one area that I think we should be considering. There are some communities that may not be asking for a great deal of increase, and because of that, the printing and postage costs could be a sizable percentage of this. If it's the case where your property taxes wouldn't go down because there has been additional construction in your community, then I hate to see those costs being paid. Thank you.
Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd addressed a couple of comments that the speaker made. I would look at this as a Venn diagram. So if a cemetery board and a municipality decided that they wanted to increase your property taxes, but the county did not, where the overlay of the cemetery board and the overlay of the municipality connects, those two would share the cost of the postage and mailing for that area. Where they do not overlay, they would be responsible for their own mailing, and they would be on the same sheet of paper. This is modeled after Utah, and we went and found the Director of Accounts and Reporting, and they will help format a template and post it, make it available. The other item that was brought up, so we're trying to simplify this process as much as possible, expedite it as much as possible. But as I said before, this good senator may not have heard it, I said it in caucus, I go around and speak to many groups, and often I will ask them, would you pay $1 more on your property taxes in order to get this notice? I've never had anyone say no yet. I'm sure they're out there, but they haven't said it to me. The other item in this, and I want to make this perfectly clear, this does not lower your property taxes. This does not increase property taxes. It establishes a process for transparency on property taxes. And we've talked about the side of valuations going up, but there's also a flip side that if we have an exorbitant decrease in valuations, the revenue neutral rate allows that body to increase property taxes to come up to the same dollar amount as the previous year. So it works. It's both sides of the equation. I wouldn't recommend a local government doing that, but they are able to do it, and they are able to collect the same amount of money without sending out any notices or doing anything different.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I do understand the improvements that have been made to the notices and very much appreciate that. That's one of the things that I think has made the bill better. Again, my concern is just that a municipality would have to go through this process based on a revenue neutral rate that does not take into account increased valuation in the county. Thank you.
Are there any further questions on the bill? Seeing none, Senator, you may move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank everybody for their comments, both positive and against. I understand this is a major change, and that tests our comfort zone with any change. However, I disagree with one of the comments that we're going to be back here again. I had concern over the property tax lid and the exemptions that were included. But I want local control. I want my local governments to be able to make decisions and manage. And that's why, after listening to testimony in committee, I think we gave up the property tax lid too soon. Because if we would have left that in for a while, then they would have realized how good it was for us to remove that. But we talked to stakeholders throughout the state. There were many legislators involved. I'd like to thank the ranking, the vice chair of the committee, and the previous vice chair of the committee, and many others that were involved in this process. I'm a software engineer, and what we did to get to this point was pie in the sky. We started with, what do we want? From everything from removing property taxes completely to electing appraisers. I mean, everything was on the table. We did a weighted matrix, and these two items, the transparency and valuation not impacting your property tax, normal maintenance not impacting the valuation, rose to the top of the heap quickly. And that's why you're seeing this legislation today. We added the portion that, as I said, the good representative came up with the idea of allowing an option for a payment plan. I think that just enhances the bill. I appreciate the body's discussion and the deliberative debate. And Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee rises in report on SB 13 favorably for passage.
As amended?
It was not amended in this committee, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
You are correct, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That motion is carried. The chair recognizes the majority leader from Sedgwick, Senator Solentrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion's carried. Thank you.
Clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Solentrop, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders, with Senator Hildebrand in the chair. Recommended SB 14 be passed, SB 13 be amended by adoption of the committee report, and the bill be passed as amended.
Chair recognizes the senator from Cherokee, Senator Hildebrand, to adopt the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we adopt the report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The report's adopted. Chair recognizes the majority leader from Sedgwick, Senator Solentrop.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended, and the following bills be advanced to final action and roll call. Senate Bill 14 and Senate Bill 13.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now ready for final action. On this roll call, we'll take the following bills on page 4 and page 5, Senate Bill 14 and Senate Bill 13. The clerk will read the titles.
Senate Bill 14, an act concerning governmental response to the COVID-19 pandemic in Kansas. Senate Bill 13, an act concerning property taxation.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Estes. Begg. Voscadeau. Francisco. Gossage.
Hold on. Senator from Douglas, you want to cast your vote?
I would.
We're trying to hold explanations to the end, but I'll allow now since we haven't discussed the permanent rules. But I am going to open for explanation in the end. Senator from Douglas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I vote aye on Senate Bill 14, but pass on Senate Bill 13. I appreciate that the bill eliminates the property tax lid. However, I'm concerned that the calculations of the revenue neutral rate do not take into consideration any increased valuation within a taxing subdivision.
Continue to call the roll.
Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Close. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Heck, Peterson, Petty, Pittman, Pyle, Steffen, Straub, Sullentrop, Sykes, Thompson, Tyson, Ware, Warren, Wilborn,
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to change their vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Finney, Senator Dahl.
I would like to explain my vote on Senate Bill 13. My heart, soul is sad. I understand we are a unitary government at the state level, and the local governments are made by, I was a government teacher for 20 years. It's sad that we do not have faith and trust in our local government, and we have to mandate them. I feel bad for us when we address this again in 5 years, because it won't age well. I want that public.
Would you like your remarks spread on the journal? So ordered. Does any other senator wish to explain their vote? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. "34 voting in favor and 1 against the passage of SB 14, and 34 1 against in favor of SB 13. These measures, having received their constitutional majority, are hereby declared passed." For a list of reports submitted by the Board of Regents and EMS, please refer to the January 14, 2021 Journal. Are there announcements? Hold that. We're going to refer back to the order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 28 by Committee on Insurance, an act concerning insurance. Senate Bill 29 by Committee on Insurance, an act concerning insurance. Senate Bill 30 by Committee on Insurance, an act concerning the Kansas Uniform Securities Act. Senate Bill 31, an act by Committee on Education, an act concerning education. Senate Bill 32 by Committee on Education, an act concerning education. Senate Bill 33 by Committee on Transportation, an act concerning motor vehicles. Senate Bill 34 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning administrative rules and regulations. Senate Bill 35 by Committee on Federal, State, and State Affairs, an act concerning elections.
This constitutes introduction of SB 28 through SB 35. Now, are there announcements? Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to remind the body that Senate Judiciary Committee will be meeting tomorrow in our regular room, the old Supreme Court room, from 11 a.m. to 1 o'clock if needed, till 1. Thanks very much.
Senator from Cowley, Senator Alley.
President, to clear up some confusion, Fed and State will not be meeting tomorrow, so thank you very much.
Very good. Further announcements? Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a change to the Senate Tax Committee. I just wanted to make sure the committee is aware of it. We talked about it today. We will continue the hearing on Senate Bill 22 on Tuesday the 19th, and then on the 21st, we will have 2 hearings. We will have Senate Bill 21 and Senate Bill 23 and then plans to work Senate Bill 22. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Cherokee, Senator Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder to the Public Health and Welfare Committee, we are going to have a joint meeting with the House Health Committee. This is the committee, or the meeting is going to have the hearing of KDHE, where we were not able to do it on Tuesday, but KDHE will be here next Tuesday from 12 to 1. Meeting room, as soon as I find that out, I will get that to everybody, committee members. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Solentrop.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adjourn pro forma until 8 a.m. on Friday, January 15th, 2021.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. The Senate is adjourned.